Hi, my name is Joanna Clark with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and I'm back with another amazing expert. I have Chantal Donnelly with me today. She is a stress expert, and she is a specialist in the nervous system and a resilience toolkit facilitator. And the reason why I'm having Chantal here today is because, we are in the middle of this pandemic, and I've, been shelter in place for a solid 3 weeks now. And I found about a week in that I was just really stressed out in a way that I'd never been before, even though I was doing all my normal things to help myself stay calm. And I just was really having a hard time doing that. And so I heard about Chantal because she was doing a workshop, and I thought, just like I'm always searching for new insights and perspectives. So I thought, all right, I need some help in this area. And I now know not to struggle and martyr myself. When I need help, I go seek it. And I was so thrilled to have been on this workshop because the workshop that she did on stress response curve and provided me some tools literally was life-changing for me. I finally had a perspective on what was going on with me and some tools to help myself. My husband participated and he loved it too. And so I just knew I had to bring Chantal with me, to all of you to learn about this stress response curve and the tools that can help us all regulate and calm down so that we can be better parents, better spouses, better employees during this unusually stressful time. So Chantal, thank you so much for being here and making time. And I am going to let you take it from here and show us the way through our stress response curve.
Thank you for having me, Joanna. It's really nice to be here and to be a part of this. Yes, so what we know from stress science is that during normal times, there is a curved response to the way people interact with stress, okay? What we know during a crisis, for example, a pandemic, is that that curve remains the same. However, it's heightened. It feels bigger. It's almost like we've taken a highlighter and we've highlighted all of our stress responses, right? And taking a highlighter to something actually helps you to see it better, right? It helps you to understand it possibly better. So that's one thing that we're seeing in ourselves and our spouses and our bosses and our teachers is we're seeing a heightened response to what they might normally do. And that can bring a lot of clarity and a lot of understanding and a lot of growth and transformation. So what is it that we're seeing in ourselves? What are we feeling in ourselves as a response to this pandemic? What are we seeing in our loved ones, in our children, and our spouses? And again, our bosses, maybe the people that we're interacting with, right? So what are we seeing? What we're seeing is a lot of stuff that's normal, quite honestly, right? When you were saying that you were feeling a lot more stressed, it's good to know you're human, right?
Right.
This is very normal stuff. So as I talk about what it is that we're seeing and this curve, just keep in mind that this is okay right now. It's totally normal. So let's talk about the curve. So it starts on the left-hand side, and this is where we find calm, right? This is where we generally like to be, and it's very difficult to be during a crisis. So calm looks like focus, patience towards others, towards our children, towards our spouse. It looks like creativity because we have the bandwidth to be creative. And it really looks like connectedness with other human beings. So this is where attachment bonding happens, right? And so during a stressful moment, there's a sort of increase in pressure, right? And like I said, during a crisis, that pressure feels even bigger. And this pressure has some frantic energy involved in it. This is where, like for me, I find myself being very reactive. I get moody and irritable. This is where what some people call mommy or daddy volcano happens, right? Where your child says something to you and you completely overreact. This is what I experience myself when I'm up here. And I've been up here a lot during this pandemic, right? I use my tools that I'm going to share with you to kind of come back down a little bit. But I do find myself up here a lot more than normal. And it feels bigger. It feels more intense, more energy, more franticness. It feels hurried. This is where we all want to do too much, right? Clean, organize, change our careers. Like there's a constant need to do in this state. This is where we're unable to sleep, right? Even if our kids are sleeping, we have too much energy, so we can't sleep. Right? When you have energy, there's no way for your system to calm down enough to go to sleep, right? So there's a hurriedness, a lack of time, irritability, just a whole lot of movement and energy happening up here. And a lot of times we call this fight or flight, right? So that's part of the curve. And then the energy and the movement slides down the curve. And you end up on the right side of this curve, and all movement kind of comes to a stop. This is where you don't want to grocery shop, you don't want to clean, you don't want to cook, you don't want to take care of your children, you don't even want to shower. You feel hopeless. You have no energy or desire to do anything. You feel disconnected, right? This is where you have a hard time relating to your spouse or your children. You don't feel like you want to connect with them, right? This is where numbness happens as well. What we know from the research is that in this shutdown or freeze state, your body releases natural occurring opioids. And so you actually do feel numb, right? It's probably a discussion for another time, but in shutdown, it's where empathy for your children and for your spouse, for your friend, possibly for your parents, empathy goes from being helpful to being harmful for you and for them, right? And that's probably another talk, but I want people to kind of be aware that this is during that shutdown phase, this is where that happens. Again, this is all normal, particularly in a crisis. And what I'm feeling personally is I feel like I toggle back and forth between shutdown, hopelessness, disconnect, and this frantic energy, always hurried, got to get too much done, irritable, can't sleep. And I go back and forth between these two. And then I'll do some of the tools that I want to show you today, and I'll come back down to calm. And sometimes the tools can help me be there for 30 seconds. And sometimes the tools help me be there for 5 hours. It just kind of depends, right? And sometimes I need to do more tools during the day than another day, right?
Exactly. And that's what I found for me, Chantal, is that I was way up here. Like, so if my curve was normally like this, and I kind of had, the way I managed myself, that if my curve normally was here, I was like so up here. And so this gap between where I know I am, if I'm like kind of stressed out, and this whole nother dimension that I've never experienced before in myself. And so I was a little bit scared because I did not understand this delta. I did not understand why I was having these frantic, hurried thoughts and urgency. But then like literally an hour later, I would be way down here. And again, that delta between maybe, being like unmotivated to cook or clean, which, happens to all us moms because we get completely OD'd on it. But now that delta between my tolerance to do a task that I wasn't already motivated to do, and now that it was required of me, took me down in this way of resentful. I was feeling resentful. I was feeling very disconnected and very like not empathetic that my family was hungry. And I was like, go do it yourself. Like I just was, and again, this delta scared me because I'd never seen this part of myself before, because I'm a really nice, kind person. And I think I'm a good mommy. I hope I'm a good mommy, but I was seeing this part of me in these deltas that I'd never seen before. And I didn't have any way of understanding what was going on. And my husband was noticing it, and my child was noticing it. Now I have a teenager, and so does Chantal. She has this 15-year-old son. I have a 16-year-old daughter. But I was responding to the two people that I adore the most in ways that was foreign to me and then extremely foreign to them. And it was causing a lot of conflict within our family, but it was also causing conflict within myself. I started really having a lot of doubt, having a lot of shame about my responses, wanting to do better in my responses, but not even understanding them enough to even have a do better. So when Chantal started explaining this curve, and then I started to notice what my delta was, and then that gave me my big aha moment of, oh, that's what's going on. It's this delta between my normal and this totally subnormal that I don't understand, and that it is normal. Like, Joanna, you're not losing your mind and you haven't become a horrible, mean person. That it's normal, and that I need to up my tools so that I can, do this. And then also the toggling, going from here to here and here to here. I was doing that so many times a day that I thought I was getting a little cuckoo. And so then that, again, Chantal normalized that for me, that this toggling is also normal. I'd wake up in the morning and be like, yes, this is what I'm going to do today. And then at the end of the day, nothing really got done. And then I'd guilt and shame myself, and it was round and round and round we go. And so I can tell you that because I had this new understanding, and because I was going to started doing the tools that Chantal's going to explain to us, I am in such a better place. I mean, I am now doing what I set out to do during the day and feeling good about it. And if I hadn't had this information, I think I would probably still be toggling all day long and feeling tremendous guilt and shame. So I just wanted to kind of add like how it was showing up for me, so that you all maybe could relate, or I'm just being transparent about that. This is a surprise me in ways about myself I never anticipated. Because normally I'm super even keeled, and I'm kind of the rock in my household. And so they were like, our rock is going crazy. Like, now what? So then now my husband understands more, and we explained it to my daughter, and it's like, everyone's just a little bit more peaceful and a little bit more empathetic towards me, that I'm, my stress response is so big. So
I love the way you explain it as the delta. If we think about with this virus, we're trying to flatten the curve.
yeah.
Right? So now we have to flatten the curve of our stress response as well in order to beat this virus, right?
Totally. I love that analogy. It's great.
What I'm finding too is that this fight or flight was happening a lot with people in the first couple of weeks. And that involves adrenaline, right? To go into fight or flight, it involves your parasympathetic nervous system and adrenaline. And eventually, the adrenaline exhausts itself. So I'm actually finding that I'm down here a lot more. I'm heading to calm in here and spending a lot less time up in fight or flight as time goes on, because I've exhausted myself, right? And a lot of parents might be feeling that way as well.
So another thing you told me, Chantal, that really blew my mind is that, here I am toggling from here down to, the spaz to the, like, I don't want to do anything. And so I had this big idea that I could just walk right over here to calm and like skip.
Right.
So can you explain that? Because that really kind of was like, damn, because I'm always looking for the shortcut. So can you explain that, Chantal?
Yeah, sadly, there's no shortcut for this roller coaster ride, right? So if you're up in fight or flight and then you find yourself down in shutdown, which a lot of people are, I know I am myself, you can't get off the ride and head over to calm. It doesn't work that way. You have to go through fight or flight to get through calm. So what that feels like is when you're feeling hopeless and shut down, it actually is a sign of what I would call down regulation. Anything where you're going from this side of the curve to this side of the curve is called down regulation. So a positive direction, right? You actually have to go through fight or flight to get there. So you're gonna feel a little energy in your body to get to calm, because you gotta go through this fight or flight phase. That's why I keep a lot of my tools very short, because if you go there too fast, too much, you start to feel your feelings too fast, too much, and you feel that that shakiness in your body too much and it's very uncomfortable. If you go slowly in little increments, you can get back over to the calm side in a much more comfortable healing kind of a way. There's one stress response that I forgot to mention. It's very infrequently talked about. People don't really talk about it very often. It has a really sweet name, so it doesn't actually sound like a stress response. It's called tend and befriend. So tend and befriend sort of lands in between this calm and fight or flight. It lands right in the center of that. And what it is exactly like it sounds. It's tending to people who need help, whether that's an elderly person, child, anybody who needs help right now. And befriending is gathering groups of people to come up with helpful solutions and to do good things, right? So a lot of people are actually ending up in tend and befriend right now. We're seeing a lot of volunteer programs being organized. We're seeing a lot of that kind of thing. People are reaching out to their elderly neighbors. That's tend and befriend. So it has some energy to it. You want to move, you want to do something, but you're still not quite up here at fight or flight, right? And I think as time goes on, we're either entering too much of a shutdown or we're ending up in tend and befriend, because it's kind of almost impossible to be totally calm all the time right now during a crisis. Right?
Yes, and I think that's an important thing to say, is that again, like really just trying to normalize this experience, right? Is that we will be, stress response is normal, and the curve of stress response is normal. So you will go maybe you'll feel calm this morning, and then you'll pop up here, and then maybe you'll come down to tend and befriend, and then maybe by the end of the day, if things were hectic, maybe you're down here, and then you can work your way back up through some tools. So this is not like, or at least the way I've been internalizing this since I did my workshop with you, is just noticing where I'm starting out, where I might be heading, and then using some tools to kind of, try to keep myself on this side. So if I end up in tend and befriend, it's still positive. I might not be able to be at calm. I might still feel some urgency about helping my neighbors, and feeling like I need to get involved and like do good. But it's not as this crazy where I'm going to start being really short and impatient with my family, right? So maybe you could talk about the tools.
Yeah, so people might be wondering, your listeners might be wondering, why you would want to downregulate or head towards calm if right now it's normal and adaptive, right? The reason why is because the more stressed you are, the weaker your immune system.
Yes,
right?
That's true.
The stress is adaptive, but the more we stay up in a chronic stress place, it becomes maladaptive and it hurts your immune system. So we want to strengthen our immune system. So that's one of the reasons that we're going to calm. And the other reason we're going to calm is because calm is contagious. And if we're in quarantine with children, if we're in quarantine with anybody, but children in particular, their calm is dependent on our calm, right? So that's like a co-regulation kind of a thing. If mommy is calm, baby will coo, baby will giggle, toddler will giggle, and then that calms mommy even more, right? So we get this beautiful co-regulation that happens. And that's another reason why we always want to check in on where we are in our stress response. Right.
And that is so important. And I think that, Chantal mentioned a little bit earlier about this concept of empathy, and she and I are going to do another conversation about this concept of good empathy, bad empathy, how it relates to co-regulation, and how that is totally and absolutely related to our day-to-day parenting interactions. Because we all want to be wonderfully loving, secure attachment parents, and we are in a highly unusual time right now. And the more we can learn how to downregulate, the more we can stay regulated, so that then we can show that co-regulation to our child and obviously our partners or spouses too. But as a parent, you want the co-regulation, and it is, especially the younger ones that are pre-verbal, so important to have a really beautiful co-regulated experience with them. And we're going to do another interview on that, because that's a critical topic, especially when you go to look at doing any kind of sleep training. That is a very important component of successful sleep coaching. So that was just a little side note, but let's keep going. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
The research on empathy it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating, or at least it is to me. So I hope we do get to do that talk.
Yes.
So the tools, before we get into the tools that I'm going to share with you to help you downregulate, right? I like to say that the framework of the tools is actually more important than the tools themselves. Both are important, but the framework is really important. The framework is such that you want to know where you are in your stress response. So it takes a little bit of what I would call playing detective. Where are you in your stress response? How do you know? What does your body feel like? What is your body saying to you about where you are in your stress response? And is that appropriate, right? Because you don't want to downregulate if it's not appropriate, right? Most of the time we're up too high. We're a little bit too stressed for the time, for what's going on right now, right? And I'm not talking about worrying about our finances or worrying about this pandemic. I'm talking about like right now, where I'm sitting right now. Is this stress response serving me? Is it helping me? And most of the time, the answer is no, but occasionally it's yes. So really knowing when to use a tool, and then knowing if the tool is helping you or not. You might do a tool and it makes you feel worse. I don't know, right? So it's up to you to really play detective with these tools and to figure out which ones are working for you. It's like that whole, everyone thinks self-care is a magic pill, right? And so I could say, you should do this for self-care, but what if that self-care doesn't work for you, right? So tools are the same thing, right? We got to figure out what works for us, whether it's a self-care hot bath, right? With Epsom salts, or it's a tool like ones I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
So anytime I'm demonstrating these tools, if you're feeling like you don't want to try it or you don't feel like it's helping you in your body, please stop.
Yeah.
All right. So the first two tools I'm going to talk about are based on research in childhood development and psychology, and they involve crossing the midline of the body as well as bilateral tactile stimulation. So bilateral is both sides of the body, tactile touch and stimulation, right? And the research on those, that in that area is where these two tools came from. So the first one's called butterfly hug. So if you out there want to try it, please do. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna bring your hands up towards your face, palms facing you. And then you're gonna cross your hands and hook your thumbs together like this. Okay, that's the bilateral crossing midline part. And then we're gonna place our hands on our chest just so that our fingers are underneath our collarbones. Okay, and then let me move my hair so you can all see here. So thumbs hooked, fingers under collarbones. And then we're going to alternate tapping right and then left. Right and left. You can do this fast with light taps, or depending on what feels right for you, you can go slow and a little bit more pressure. And it's really about what feels good to you, what's going to help you calm. And so you're going to do this until A, you feel yourself calming a little bit in your system, or B, you want to stop. Maybe if it doesn't feel good, you can stop. So what calming might feel like is sometimes it's a deep sigh. Sometimes it's a yawn. Sometimes people's eyes water. Sometimes people get like a little tingling in their body, or sometimes a tingling in their body stops, and it's completely individual. It's really about what works for you.
And so do you want to keep doing it until you can start to feel some of those versions of calmer? Is there a certain amount of time? Like, would you want to do this for 3 minutes, 20? I mean,
so generally I would say you want to do it for about 30 seconds.
Oh,
that's really
so
all you need.
Super fast, you guys. So this is not a bit like, this is something you can do multiple times a day when you feel yourself, toggling up the curve. And also, you guys, those of you that have babies and children, like, right, we can do this with our children, right? If we can help them, right?
Yeah, you just want to make sure when you give something like this to a child, they want to please you.
That's true.
So you do want to be careful sharing it with a child, right? Because they may do it and it might not feel good to them.
That's right. You know what? In fact, I jumped the gun because there I am like, I want a magic fix.
Yeah.
No. So,
but do remember that if you do this for yourself and it does indeed help you, then it's going to help your child.
Right. Because of the co-regulation. Okay. So show us the other tool.
So the other one is also based on the same principles of crossing the midline of the body and bilateral tactile stimulation. It's called lotion or arm sweeps, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to lift my arms up to demonstrate, but you can keep your arms down while you're doing this, whatever feels best to you. So you're going to put opposite arm to opposite shoulder, and then you're going to sweep down the arm and then go to the other side. Some people like to do little squeezes with this instead of the sweeps. And again, you got to play detective and figure out what works best for you. Check in with your body. Are you feeling yourself calm in any way? And what does that mean for you? Mm-hmm. Right? So sweeping, I like to do a little bit of both. I start with sweeping and then I go on to the squeezes and then I finish with sweeping. I get real fancy with it.
Okay. I love that. Again, so easy. You can literally be, if you're on a conference call and you're feeling yourself getting a little bit intense, you can just, turn your video off for a second and do that. Right. Yeah. So these are things that you can stop in the middle of a moment while you're, anyways, these are so amazing. So the one that I think we have time for one more, which is a breathing exercise. Obviously we know that there's lots and lots of breathing techniques out there. But what I love about your work is that everything that you recommend as a tool for stress reduction is unequivocally science-based. So can you talk about the breath that has been proven over and over again?
Yeah, so there's some really great research coming out of a Stanford lab on breathing. And what we already know from the research on breathing is that humans are really interesting. When we inhale, our heart rate and our blood pressure goes up a little bit. So we actually go up into fight or flight just a tiny bit when we inhale. And when we exhale, our heart rate and our blood pressure goes down a little bit. So we actually go into what we call social engagement or the calm section a little bit, right? So we can make use of that knowledge. And there has been research done on doing a longer exhalation than an inhalation. And we know that that helps people to de-stress. So the way I like to teach this is you can do it eyes open or eyes closed. You can breathe through your nose or your mouth, whatever is most comfortable to you. What I would suggest is that you take a natural inhale, and while you're inhaling, count and see how long you naturally inhale for. Is it 2 counts? Is it 3 counts? Is it 4 counts? And then double that for your exhalation. So if you take 3 counts in naturally on your inhale, then take 6 counts for your exhale, right? You want that longer exhalation. The reason I suggest that people count their own natural inhalation is if I tell you to take 4 counts in and you normally take 2, you will start to go into your shoulders and get tense, right? On just trying to get enough breath in, and that sort of defeats the purpose.
Right.
And you'll probably upregulate. It'll probably make you feel worse.
And that was happening to me. That was happening to me. And Chantal was like, Joanna, like, I think your inhale's too deep. Cause I was like, and so thank you for re-clarifying that. Cause that is important. Like your natural inhale and then double what the exhale is. That's
I learned from you, Joanna, because I saw you doing that. I was like, I'm just going to ask people to inhale naturally.
Yeah,
see how that works. It works a lot better.
Again, I was like, I need to learn this tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course, fight or flight, right? Our breathing gets very shallow. And so we don't want to be hyperventilating while we're doing this. This is a very relaxed breathing. The key element here is your exhale is longer than your inhale.
Right. And again, how many, again, like with the other tools, it was, 30 seconds should get you in a good place. Do you have any ideas on how many breaths? Is it just until we feel calmer, or?
Yeah. So it's until you feel calmer. Remember that when you're in shutdown, you don't want to go too fast into fight or flight.
That's right. That's right.
So that's one of the reasons we don't do it for too long. So as soon as you feel some kind of down regulation, whatever that means to your body, just a little bit of calming, you just want a little bit, that's a good time to stop. Right. And again, if it feels not good to you, not good in your body, then you want to stop as well.
Okay. So this has just been, again, like I even learned even more from this this conversation, which is exactly why I wanted Chantal to come talk to us, and we're going to definitely have her back to talk about empathy and co-regulation. So that's so important for our relationship with our children. But how, if somebody is like me, that was listening to this and was like, oh my gosh, Chantal, tell me more, help me. What right now, how are you helping people?
Well, right now with quarantine, we're in close quarters with our loved ones, right? And so what ends up being a real problem for people is being overreactive with a child or a spouse, or if you're living with parents, that can happen as well. And so I've really been working one-on-one with people to help with their overreactivity. And then there's sort of this, it's a terrible spiral that happens. Like you get overreactive, you become mommy volcano, right? And then there's the shame associated with that.
Yes.
And the self-doubt of how I don't know how to parent, and all of that sort of becomes this awful spiral. And so really working with people on not being so triggered and so overreactive, using the tools that I taught you today, but other tools as well. And just on a more individual basis, I can do that. I also am a physical therapist. That's how I started my training. And what I was realizing with my patients is that a lot of times chronic stress turns into chronic pain, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people might be feeling a lot of new pain or old familiar pain, but coming back up to the surface now with this pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I've been helping people unravel some of the chronic pain that they're having, just by looking at how stress is interlaced with their pain. So doing a lot of that right now. And people can reach me and work with me individually, but they can also sign on to some of the workshops that I'm putting out there. Because of the pandemic, it's been hard to sort of say exactly when I'm doing in-person workshops. I do have some online workshops coming up. The best way to find out about those is to contact me at bodyinsight.com. There's a contact sheet there. You can also follow me on Instagram, Body Insight Inc. on Instagram.
Right, which is great. So so what you're saying is that if they want to do some one-on-one with you, absolutely go to bodyinsight.com website and go to the contact me page and reach out to you individually. If you're interested in more, if those of you who are listening to Chantal and want to learn more about the workshops, or frankly, you want your husband to do the workshop, which my husband did do the workshop, and it helped us so as a couple and as a family so much. These workshops are free, which is awesome, because Chantal is really wants to get this knowledge out there to help people immediately. She'll be announcing those on her Instagram and her website, so you can be checking back there. And I think you said that you have some coming up in April and May, so there's plenty of opportunity, in other words, for you guys to jump in and get some knowledge, continued knowledge from Chantal. So Chantal, again, thank you so much for taking the time to share this important information to us. I hope all of you out there that are listening to this have some aha moments like I did, and to just really have empathy for yourself, that what you're experiencing, or this delta, if like you're like me and you've got this big delta in the high zone and the low zone, that it is normal and that there are some tools that can help you come back into balance. And now that I'm using the tools and I am feeling better back in balance, I can tell you it's a much better world to be living in. And I wouldn't have known about this if it hadn't been for Chantal. We'll be back with Chantal to talk about empathy. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much, Chantal. This was great.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Okay, thank you.